It's that time again. Time to talk college football in the middle of March Madness even. Let's talk some college football here at the Voice of College Football and the College Football Show. Appreciate you stopping by. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. You know the drill. Leave those comments and questions there in the fine chat. Chat it up amongst yourselves. Leave me a question or comment. The call-in lines in the chat as well. We will take your calls. And we have a guest coming up in about an hour. That would be Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered, where we expect Chris to show up and be completely unfiltered about his comments about the SEC. We've had Chris on a number of times throughout the years, many times, and I've been on his show many times. Great guy, interesting guy, strong takes. Chris Phillips at 5 p.m. Eastern Time from SEC Unfiltered. The book is Disputed National Champions. You can pick it up at Amazon. Just type in Disputed National Champions or follow the link down in the description section of this video and all the videos here at the Voice of College Football. Well, we got a college football coach fired today. Can you believe that? These guys usually get fired the day after the season ends. But when there are off-the-field issues, then there are off-the-field issues. Here we go. This came down just a little over an hour ago. This is an ESPN report. I don't know that this story was necessarily broken, of course, because it was announced by the school. So this is an ESPN post by Kyle Bonagura and Juan Tai. Stanford fired football coach Troy Taylor. The school has just announced. The decision comes a week after ESPN reported that 2 outside firms had found Taylor bullied and belittled female athletic staffers, sought to have an NCAA compliance officer removed after she warned him of rules violations and repeatedly made, quote, inappropriate comments to another woman about her appearance. Quote, since beginning my role as general manager, I have been thoroughly assessing the entire Stanford football program. It has been clear that certain aspects of the program need change. Stanford football general manager Andrew Luck said in a statement. Andrew Luck. Additionally, in recent days, there has been significant attention to Stanford investigations in previous years related to Coach Taylor. After continued consideration, it is evident to me that our program needs a reset. In consultation with university leadership, I no longer believe that Coach Taylor is the right coach to lead our football program. Coach Taylor has been informed today, and the change is effective immediately. It's unclear whether the university will have to pay out the remainder of Taylor's contract. Certainly, there is a conduct clause in the contract. In response to ESPN's report last week, Stanford said Taylor had complied with the investigations and was committed to improving his behavior. Sources told ESPN that Luck met with the team in Taylor's presence on Thursday and doubled down on his support for the coach. Okay, that was not the best of moves. And there is the support possibly, or this is actually the, yes, this is the announcement and the statement made by General Manager Andrew Luck concerning Troy Taylor's dismissal. According to documents obtained by ESPN, the investigations began after multiple employees filed complaints against Taylor for what they called hostile and aggressive behavior, as well as personal attacks. The school hired Kate Weaver Patterson of KWP Consulting and Mediation to investigate in the spring of 23. Only had the job for 3 seasons, right? After the first investigation, Taylor signed a warning letter. This was about a month ago, acknowledging he could be fired if the conduct continued, according to the documents. Additional complaints were documented in a second investigation that ended February of 2024, a year ago. The second investigation cited evidence that this is the ongoing pattern of concerning behavior by Coach Taylor. It was conducted last June and July by Timothy O'Brien from a law firm there, said in his report that he never encountered, quote, this palpable level of animosity and disdain for a university compliance office. Even during the interview with me, when talking about compliance issues, Coach Taylor's tone was forceful and aggressive. I'm not going to buy into that too much. Who knows about that portion of it? He called Taylor's treatment of the team's compliance officer inappropriate, discriminatory on the basis of her sex, saying it had a significant negative impact on the staffer. Again, that's pretty possibly subjective, the subjective portion of this anyway, about his attitude while being questioned. O'Brien concluded that Taylor retaliated against the compliance staffer by, quote, seeking her removal from her assigned duties. This guy just didn't know how to stop. He just didn't know when to say, you know what? I got a second chance here. Let's change. Let's either check our attitudes and check our behavior and determine those to be not civil and not right and not healthy. Or even if we think that this is a crock of garbage, then we will still want to protect our job and do on the surface what's the right thing to do. He could obviously not show enough constraint to do either. O'Brien outlined possible disciplinary procedures, including termination under NCAA bylaws if an employee retaliates, quote, such as intimidating, threatening, or harassing an individual who has raised a claim. One source told ESPN that Taylor lost the locker room. Two sources told ESPN that Taylor's behavior extended beyond athletic department and compliance office staff and onto the field. He was 3-9 and 3-9. He previously coached at Sacramento State. Taylor said last week in a statement to ESPN that it's a learning opportunity. Quote, I willingly complied with the investigations, accepted the recommendations that came out of them, and used them as a learning opportunity to grow in leadership and how I interact with others. And so ESPN wanted a further comment from Taylor, who did not respond today. And it appears as though Taylor's closing comment was that he looked forward to continuing to work collaboratively and collegially with my colleagues so that we can achieve success for our football program together. Whoa. All right. He's out. And although we are happy about Chris Phillips being on our show in about 45 minutes, he is not here now, so I'll take that off the screen. I was reading with another window open there. My apologies. But yeah. So what can you say about this situation? We don't know if any of these claims were proven to be true, but there's a truckload of them. So there's a ton of them. And again, Troy Taylor's gone 3-9 and 3-9. Now, if this was a successful football coach on the field, then the investigation and the findings and the decision at this point may be a little bit different. If Troy Taylor was 9-3 and 9-3, then it would still be serious. They'd still be investigating. There'd still be disciplinary action. I don't know if he would be fired. But this guy has nothing working for him right now. Zero. And it's obviously practically all his fault. Maybe it's all his fault, but it's certainly the majority his fault. And so Troy Taylor, I don't know if this is something that he struggled with at his previous stops, but we did not see any of that or hear of any of that prior to coming to Stanford. And it's going to be he's almost unhireable going forward at that level of a position, especially considering, again, the football. The football's awful. The conduct is awful. And then when reprimanded, the conduct is apparently awful as well. So that's one. Troy Taylor, Stanford, gone. So a difficult time for a team that's trying to recover from just horrendous season after season after season after season. We've now got 3 consecutive 3-9 seasons from Stanford, and they lose their football coach sometime probably leading into spring practice, or they've started spring practice. That statement did not note, unless there's a longer statement by Andrew Luck, and if there was, then ESPN should have cited this in the story, who the interim coach is. I didn't see anything there in the story about the interim coach at Stanford, but we could argue whether Stanford takes football seriously, but they've got to take matters like that seriously, of course. And if it's true, and to the degree that it's been stated there, it's obviously completely inappropriate and it has to be dealt with harshly, and it has. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. We are happy to announce that, let's see, it would be 17 days from today. That would be April 11th. You can call me late night. We'll do a late night call-in show. Those have been successful in the past, so we will do one once again. That's going to be every week, once a week with a call-in show late night. That's once a week, late night call-in show. We'll decide at the beginning of the week when we're going to have our late night call-in show. But the first one is Tukey G's call. And Tukey G said Friday, April 11th, 11 p.m. Eastern time. So, yes, sir, I will be there that Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern time. Tell all your friends the Voice of College Football is going to be on late night once a week, and we will find out each Sunday when that's going to be. Dave's here says that Andrew Luck released a document that explains everything. Is that the same document that we see right here? So Andrew Luck says here, since beginning my role as GM, I have been thoroughly assessing the entire Stanford football program. And so we read that. It's evident to me that our program needs a reset. Okay, Coach Taylor is not the right coach to lead our football program. We read that. Focus on the student athletes, ensuring they have the best possible experience on the field, in the classroom, and on campus. Wish him well. Stanford University is my home, and I am so excited to support our players in competing at the highest level and developing as young adults. I am confident that we will return Stanford to the top echelon of college football. Well, Andrew, I wish I could say the same thing. Dave's here. Good point. First GM to fire a head coach. So we're going to see those from the GMs, I guess. I guess that's something we haven't necessarily tackled yet, is who's going to fire these head coaches. But if it follows in line with professional sports and the hierarchy, then the general manager is obviously over the coach, and he hired the coach. And not in this case did Andrew Luck hire Troy Taylor, but going forward, these general managers, I don't know. Will that continue to be that can be assessed by each particular program to say, well, we have between the athletic director and the administration, that's how it's always gone. Now we got this GM who deals with basically roster management from a financial and a numbers standpoint. So is he going to be involved in firing the coach? Well, in this case, yes. This is coming from Andrew Luck. And there's a lot of I's in that statement. I believe this, I believe that. I no longer believe that Coach Taylor is the right coach to lead our football program. So this is all coming from Andrew Luck. Typically, you hear this stated, we don't believe this, we don't believe that, and we are making this move. But this is coming from Andrew Luck as an individual decision from him. So again, I would think that that's going to be a process that's going to be decided by these individual programs where they already have a process in place. They already have a hierarchy. They have a leadership team that deals with hirings and firings of a head football coach. But maybe going forward, that gets tweaked. And here's our first indication with a GM being this invested in the situation, and also so Stanford. It's a rough go for Stanford. 3 consecutive 3-9s, and now this. But remember, going into the season 2 years ago, Pat Fitzgerald and all that hazing business, and just a horrible situation. Whether the extent of the hazing and all of that, that's still under investigation. That's still a suit in place by Pat Fitzgerald to try to, in his eyes, right some wrongs and clear the record, clear his name. So we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but the in the moment situation was that Northwestern had this really awful football team that won one game, and then they had this hazing incident in leading into August camp, and David Braun stepped into it, and he did a heck of a job and won 8 games that year. So it's possible that great things can come from bad situations. There we go. Well done, Karen. Thank you for bringing that to light. I should have specified that. Yeah, so Andrew Luck played college football at Stanford. And then, yes, was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Had a great start to a career with the Indianapolis Colts before suffering concussions. And he probably played, about 7 years? Something in that range, but was having a great pro career, led the Colts to an AFC championship game, but had to step down early. And now he is in the GM position. That is the one and only Andrew Luck. Dave's here. Well put, Dave, or maybe not well put. I don't know. It depends on your perspective. Dave says that Pat Fitzgerald, having coached at a school for a long, long time, 17 years, that really emphasizes academics and is in that same Stanford, not to that degree quite, but Northwestern, of course, an acclaimed academic school, that Pat Fitz would be a good fit at Stanford, except for the weenie car wash. Okay. If you're not aware, look into it. I don't want to go through it right now, but I did allude to it when talking about Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald. We've got some of the standbys showing up here. This is good to see. Go Gators beat Maryland. We're talking basketball, of course. with Florida. And basically half the SEC is still in March Madness. Something like that. It's pretty crazy. So that's the word on Stanford. They need a football coach. And they need a football coach who is going to win and not abuse women. It's kind of late to be deciding this as well, but we're looking at a situation there with Maryland, where they've got an offensive coordinator coming in, or a defensive coordinator coming in at this late stage of the game. Consider that they probably already started spring practice as well. But recall this, the year that Michigan turned it around and went from 2-4 in 2020, the COVID year, and then turned it around to win the Big Ten championship and go to the playoff. I don't know why it took this long, but they did not have a coaching staff. They did not have their majority of coaches on both sides of the football leading into spring practice. They were still pulling that staff together going into spring practice. They probably had some late defections for the NFL. And coming off of 2020, Michigan was trying to figure out whether they were going to keep Jim Harbaugh, and if they were going to keep him, under what conditions. And they slashed his salary and pointed their finger in his face and told him to get better on and off the field. And Jim Harbaugh, of course, flirted with the NFL and took all sorts of trips to Minneapolis and elsewhere and decided to come back to Michigan. And by the time they pulled together their coaching staff, it was spring practice. Most of those players in Michigan didn't know these guys. And so this appears to be a disadvantage here for, well, definitely for Stanford, but also in this situation with Maryland to a much lesser degree. But again, it's been done. And these situations show us that people are adaptable. They are flexible. They can persevere, especially young football players can be resilient. Ted Monachino takes over as Maryland's defensive coordinator. I know nothing about this individual. Does not ring a bell. Former defensive coordinator for the aforementioned Indianapolis Colts, spent the past 2 years at North Carolina. Coached the defensive line in 2024. Spent time in the state of Maryland with the Baltimore Ravens. He coached Terrell Suggs, Elvis Dumervil, and other standouts. This outside linebackers coach from 2010 to 15, won the Super Bowl with Baltimore in 2013, 58 years old. College stops at James Madison, Missouri State, Boise State, and Arizona State early in his career. Analyst at Mizzou in 2018, North Carolina 2023. After the 18 season, he briefly accepted the defensive coordinator job at Kansas State before leaving for a role with the Chicago Bears, which tells me that he did not coach for Kansas State. The move is part of a coaching staff shakeup for Maryland's 4-8 season. Monachino replaces Brian Williams, who left last month for the same role at Jacksonville State. When you're going from defensive coordinator at Maryland to defensive coordinator at Jacksonville State, that's not an upward career move. Maryland coach Michael Locksley also brought in Pep Hamilton. Remember that name? A former NFL offensive coordinator with several stops at the pro and college levels to oversee the Terps offense. Maryland finished 105th nationally in points allowed and 80th nationally in yards allowed last season. Or, to say it plain and simple, they sucked on defense. TF's in the house. Look at that. We got a big yo from Traveling Fools. Dave's here, of course, and others. So rough. Showing up from SEC Unfiltered, please join us then. check out our Instagram at the Voice of College Football. We launched this a couple months ago, and our guys, Gabe and Patrick, are really tearing this up. Let me make sure I can find it. And shoot, we could do a show on just what they post on here. Let's see. Why is that doing that? It keeps taking me. I want the front page. There we go. If you're on Instagram, please follow us at The Voice of College Football, and you will see fine posts like that. Blue Wolverines here. Good to see you. Jackson, of course, letting us know where you can follow us on Instagram. The link's right there in the chat. You'll get some really good stuff like this. I have been so pleased with our Instagram. This is good stuff. So there's the Troy Taylor post. Let's see, this got posted 3 hours ago. So they were on it. Bryce Underwood, Michigan quarterback. So I just taped Michigan podcast with Steve Dace just a few minutes before we came on here. Steve Dace and myself, Michigan podcast. Please check it out. I believe he uploads that late Tuesday. It might be early Wednesday. We talked about Michigan, of course, going forward with spring practice and Bryce Underwood. And then, of course, we looked at the S&P Plus on Michigan. So how well will Bryce Underwood do in 2025? Heisman winner or runner-up? Playoff season or solid system quarterback? Inconsistent starter, disappointing team, or D, NIL year TikTok dancer? D would be the most entertaining. Check out our recruiting show that we do each and every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time with Leanne Herring. That's a great show. And Leanne is really taken off on this one because she brings in some great guests and she brings in some extraordinary intel on recruiting across the board. And so today we were joined by Kennedy Brown, who is one of the top offensive tackles in the country for 2027. So check out that interview. It's on the recruiting channel. What else do we have here? Bowl game heroes. All right, so we've got that famous shot from the 2003 Fiesta Bowl and the championship game. Vince Young. Don't trust AI, by the way, folks. I'll get back to this in just a second here. I'm going to go to one of my posts on the wonderful platform of X. So knowing we were going to talk about Bryce Underwood on the Michigan podcast today, I just wanted to double check some of my knowledge on previous freshman quarterbacks. Oh, the merch site, Gregory. That's a long story. So I trust my knowledge, but I forget things, misconstrue things. I think things happened in 2006 and it was actually 2008. Those things happen to all of us. I refuse to say I'm getting old. I would never say that. So I was just checking on some extraordinary freshman seasons by quarterbacks in recent times. I could only think of Trevor Lawrence and Jamel Holloway leading national championship seasons as true freshmen. Jameis Winston is a redshirt freshman, 2013. And look at this. This is AI for you. AI is telling us that Caleb Williams, as a freshman, led the Sooners to a national championship game. Sam Bradford, 36 touchdown passes as a freshman. Okay, that is correct. Baker Mayfield, the first ever true freshman walk-on to start his school season opener, which is truly remarkable when you consider true freshman. He's a walk-on, and he's starting the school's first game of the season. That is true. Vince Young led Texas to a national championship as a freshman. Cam Newton led Auburn to a national championship as a freshman after transferring from Florida. He was a junior. Lamar Jackson had a strong freshman season, leading Louisville to a 10-3 record and, of course, an appearance in the BCS championship game. Lamar Jackson never took Louisville to a BCS bowl game. RG3, Robert Griffin III at Baylor, won the Heisman Trophy. Yes, not as a freshman, though, and did not lead Baylor to a Big 12 championship. So as I state here on X, AI sucks. I was going to be a bit kinder, but once I looked through all that and thought, they're right on 2 players out of 7. No, Troy. No. I do not accept that. I'm actually going the other way. I found the fountain of youth. You know what? If the politics were different, Gregory, I would go the Twitter route too, because I like the name Twitter better than X, but it's such a better site now. Store on Amazon, merch site. We did have a merch site for a long time. Let's see if it's still up there. Let's see if I can, won't even, never mind. Yeah, we had our merch store go under. We were involved with too many other people and somebody else was running it and it didn't work. And that's too bad because we did have some fine merch. So we're going to have to resurrect all of that. It's probably not going to happen this off season. I would love to have had merch ready for this season, but we have way too much going on. Thank you, Jackson, for those. So yeah, that's what we got from AI today. Back to Instagram. Got Chris Phillips coming up from SEC Unfiltered. Where are we? That's what made me think of our AI snafu. Vince Young, that's Vince Young against, of course, USC and winning the national championship in 2005. There's Matt Leinart. That could have been taken at any time, but we will think it's after the 2003 or 2004. In 2003, when they beat Michigan at the Rose Bowl, they wore their road uniforms, so it wouldn't have been then. This looks like the Orange Bowl. Anyway, it does. It looks like the Orange Bowl. It is the Orange Bowl, and that's Matt Leinart after they destroyed Oklahoma in 2004. This is a good one. Not necessarily the typical. This is when Florida crushed Ohio State. Is that an Ohio State? Oh, that's a 100-year patch there. But that is the BCS championship game. I'm guessing that's against Ohio State. It could be 2 years later against Oklahoma. Tommy Frazier against Florida, of course, in 95 in the Fiesta Bowl. And just blowing past people. All right, our next post, multiple national championships since 2000. Which national championship was the most impressive? Teams that won basketball and football national championships. These are the only teams. These are the only schools that won national championships Really? Huh. Yeah, I guess I'm not coming up with anyone else. Auburn's not won a basketball national championship. Alabama, Texas. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We're missing Florida. Oh, no, Florida's there. So there you go. All right. We've got how did Purdue become the Boilermakers? This should be educational. In 1891, after a 44-0 win over Wabash College, a Daily Argus writer referred to Purdue's engineering program as the Burley Boilermakers due to its hands-on railroad training. The name gained popularity by the following season. Whoop. Did I miss something there? No, that's how it came down. 1891. You heard it here first. The beauty of college football, some very nice pictures there. How did Maryland become the Terrapins? Terrapin is just short for the diamondback terrapin turtle, most known for its beautiful shell. They are abundantly found along Maryland shores bordering Chesapeake Bay. Their vice president in 1933, Clifton Bird, requested a Maryland diamondback terrapin from Holland Seafood Company of Maryland and resembled the animal in a university statue now named Testudo. It is now used for students to rub the nose for good luck before finals and big games. In 1933, the University of Maryland seniors finalized the terrapin name as a good nickname. In 1994, the state declared the terrapin as the Maryland state reptile. And so forth and so on. We have a call-in link. We'll leave it once again in the chat. That's right, Moose. You heard it here first. We're going to have a live stream here in a few weeks where we're going to get your suggestions and recommendations, ideas, all that good stuff on Patreon and on our YouTube memberships. Wait a second. Where did I see? I thought I saw. Okay, this is Troy here with. They were named after the shot in a beer drink. Don't let them fool you into thinking it was something else. Our Wednesday notes. That'd be kind of tough to do because it's Tuesday. Our Tuesday notes. Let's see if we've got anything worth discussing here. Arkansas, what's going on there? They're working out their secondary. Okay. Spring practice started for Auburn on Tuesday. Jackson Arnold tossed a couple touchdown passes during spring drills. He also got a pick 6. Florida, they've got, in addition to their coaching staff, tight ends coach William Piegler. Furman's going to play Auburn or play Florida. Florida is adding to its schedule for 2028. How exciting against Furman. Mark it on your calendars. And of course, we've got this Georgia driving business. We posted a video. Check it out. I get a little violent, but not as violent as the Georgia football team. So Marcus Easley suspended indefinitely from team activities. And we know what the deal is there. Again, we're not going to go through that because I posted a video and we spoke about it here. But 2 more Georgia driving incidents. Brian Kelly and LSU, according to Saturday Down South, now in the phase of starting to formulate what their depth charts are going to look like at each position. John Emery, he's a former 5-star, and they basically just kind of said goodbye to him. They don't need him. We'll see you. We love you, John. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Eli Drinkwitz says this is his most talented football team since he's been at Mizzou. And of course, they're 10-3 and 11-2 the last 2 years. Return 76% of their defensive production despite losing their quarterback, Brady Cook. Also, their top receiver, Luther Burden. And 2 key players in the secondary. We just concluded our Ole Miss show with Leanne Herring and Ruby Dreher. Check it out. It's on the Ole Miss channel. Ole Miss, 52 sacks, 13 games last year. Vandy, it will hold its spring game as confirmed by head coach Clark Lee. That's going to be on April 12th. Clark Lee rejected the idea of canceling Vandy's spring game in order to keep other teams from tampering with the Commodores' top players. Now, in past seasons, we would have made a little joke there about other teams not wanting to tamper with Vandy's players. But, of course, Vandy's a powerhouse now. There is the Ole Miss show. Moose is here, Troy's here, George is here, Jackson's here, and others. Please tell your friends. Let's rebuild our audience and get it back to, let's get it to the best standards ever here at the Voice of College Football. Why don't we do that? And again, we've got 20 minutes from now, Chris Phillips coming in from SEC Unfiltered. Call-in line is available. When in doubt, go to week 1. I was going to try to look up lines and point totals, and I should say win totals, but will not do that. So not only does Stanford not have a football coach, but they're playing earlier than anybody in the country, basically. They got to play in week 0. So more bad news for Stanford. Brandon, good to see you. More bad news for Stanford is that they lost their football coach, although it's probably going to be better in the long run. And they play this week 0 game on the island. That Kansas State-Iowa State game, I believe, is going to be one of the best. I believe it has the potential to be the best week 0 game we've ever seen. It probably will be the most important week 0 game we've ever seen. Fresno State at Kansas, Sam Houston, and Western Kentucky are playing on that Saturday. Week 1, Thursday. Don't sleep on the Buffalo Bulls. 9-4 last season, which reminds me, because I reviewed Buffalo today, we will be revealing our program rankings very soon. We are working on the program rankings. We'll unveil those soon. We'll do a follow-up live stream to get your takes on the program rankings. So Minnesota, don't look past Buffalo. That may not be a good thing for the Big Ten and Minnesota. Likewise, Rutgers hosting Ohio. That could be an upset. Ohio is breaking in a new head coach as Tim Albin has moved on. Nebraska, Cincinnati. This is a weird one for me. Not that they're playing, but that they're playing in Kansas City. So all these big neutral site games in week 1 and 2, especially week 1, and we get one, Nebraska and Cincinnati playing in Kansas City. All right. Let's take a call here at the Voice of College Football. We got our buddy Keith stopping by. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Mark, how's it going these days?
I am doing great. How are you?
Great. Yeah, it's good. I haven't gotten your updates for your show in a while. Have you been having it every day at 4?
Every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you like the late night variety, but we're going to start a late night call-in show in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might be one of our problems with our viewership. I should look into that. I don't know what the deal is. Other people say the same thing, that they don't get the notifications anymore.
Yeah, I even went out to the Voice of College Football, and it was just not showing me. I mean, something's got to be there. You got to talk to your communications guy TJ, see if he can get that going for you.
Yes, TJ. He needs to wave his magic wand. That's what he gets paid for. Yeah, he makes all this go away. All the bad things go away. That's right.
Maybe he's making all this OSU tainted stuff go away so no one can see it anymore. I don't think he'd do that. He's a pretty good guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why we got him.
I'd like to start an interesting discussion. Who's got more mo going into this season, Michigan or Ohio State?
Oh,
I think there's a lot of points on both sides.
You got to think the level of espionage has never been higher, especially with the money that's at stake now, with all this NIL and the media rights and paying the players. Yeah, you got me, Keith. I think there's things out there that we wouldn't want to know about.
Yeah. It's just that Josh Pate and Joel Klatt have both said that Michigan's got as much mo going into this season as anybody, with the 2 big wins we had at the end of the year.
Yep.
And with our recruiting and our transfer portal, things are looking pretty good for us.
Well, yeah. I just got off the line with Steve Dace, recording Michigan podcast, and I think I had some nice things to say about Michigan football. What we did was he had some questions concerning Bryce Underwood, and then also and basically how to approach that situation, because as you well know, there are 2 veteran quarterbacks in the room with Mikey Keene and Davis Warren, but you've got a guy that might be a total outlier. He might be the next Jaden Daniels, or fill in the blank, Vince Young, in this Bryce Underwood. And then we also looked at the schedule, and if you add up the S&P numbers, the S&P Plus numbers by Chris Connolly, you can kind of get the point spread, a feel for the point spreads from all the games this season. So we had some fun with that. So you might want to check that out.
Yeah. Yep. I've been seeing the 10-minute war every week. So I've been getting that notification. So that's been good.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, are you into this March Madness Michigan basketball run?
Yeah. In fact, the funny Steve Day story is I saw his thing with I forget his name, out in Iowa, that they do their thing, and they put a couple of brackets out there. They each put a bracket out there. I took Steve's bracket, made a few adjustments to it to make it mine, but 90% of it is his, and I'm in second place on TJ's win agency bracket.
Okay, well, that's a good place to be, as long as none of your teams that you've got advancing far into the Final Four have been knocked out.
Yeah, and I'm a total homer, so I picked Michigan to go all the way. So as soon as Michigan loses, I'll fall way out. If they win it, I might win the whole thing.
All right. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I haven't watched any basketball in forever, so I've got no opinion on this thing. But I did watch the game against. It's the first basketball game I've watched in a few years. I watched the Michigan Texas A&M game with a buddy of mine.
Would you be interested in the Michigan State rematch in the Elite Eight if it came on?
Yeah, give me that. I want to see as many Big Ten teams advance as possible.
Yeah. Well, only one will advance out of that if that happens, but we have to get through Auburn to get to Michigan State. This is the hard part of the tournament for us.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring up another football point. How many players did Ohio State send to the combine this year? It was quite a bit. In fact, it was the most, wasn't it, of everybody?
I believe the number was 15.
I believe it was 15. Did you notice that not one of them did the lifting competition?
None?
Not one. If you go to NFL.com/combine tracker, you search for Ohio in the weightlifting, and not one name comes up. And you scroll through the 3 pages of lifters, not one of the 15 Ohio State participants lifted.
It's a soft team, you know that, Keith.
That's what we were laughing about when I told the guys on the Thursday call that they just broke out in laughter, and TJ called it up and put it on the screen and confirmed it and said, "Look at this. There's no Ohio State lifters in there."
Yeah. Well, they're football players, Keith. They're not bodybuilders.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I would hope they would lift, but hey, you know, most of those guys opt out of something.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm just talking about all the players in general I guess they kind of evaluate their weak spot and they want to do that at their pro day, especially the you know, a lot of the quarterbacks, some of the top quarterbacks did not throw.
That happens. Yeah. Anybody
they
that's
want to throw to their receivers in their building.
Right. Yeah. And I can understand that. It's just that not too many people bypass the lifting, especially I think you guys had like close to 10 on the offensive and defensive line, right? You lost quite a few offensive linemen and defensive linemen.
Sure. It would have been, that's where it's extremely important, of course.
Yeah.
It would be 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Somewhere in the 6 or 7 range of offensive and defensive linemen. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. 6 or 7. Yeah. And lifting's important to those guys. So it'd be interesting to see if they lift at their pro day, like you said.
Keith, we had an offensive line coach on here a couple of years ago, and he gave us some interesting metrics on deadlifts and squats and bench presses by offensive linemen. And it's extremely important that obviously these guys are strong, and that shows in the lifting. But once you hit a certain threshold, once you get past that threshold, it doesn't predict future NFL success. You know what I mean? Like
you mean like 20 reps?
Well, let's say
you mean like 20 reps and then be 20 to 25. There's not that much improvement.
Yeah, he was also bringing up some more advanced type of metrics where they measure, you know, just their, again, not just at the combine, but their deadlift number, their other weight measurements, their squat number, and then their explosiveness and this sort of thing that's measured by however they measure that now. They've got sophisticated ways to measure that. But he said, you know, once they reach a certain point, it's almost like if you're strong enough, then you don't need to be super strong. It doesn't translate.
Yeah. That makes sense too. That's like if you do the speed test, you know, anybody that's faster than 4.4 it doesn't really matter if you're 4-2 or 4-3 because you're going to outrun 90% of the people in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess I never thought of it that way, but that's a good analysis, a good analytical point that, there's a certain threshold that you should meet, but beyond that, it's not that important. Yeah.
I don't know if they showed it this year, but I know for a few consecutive years, and I used to just, man, I would tune on that combine the day it started, Wednesday, 9 in the morning, and that thing would run in my house day after day after day, every second of it, unless I had something better to do. But I did not watch any of the combine this year. Now, I picked up a lot on social media, but I know that over the last few years, they were running a graphic where they would show some of the best wide receivers in the NFL and their combine times, and they weren't the slowest, but they definitely weren't the fastest. They were basically the mid-range 40 times at wide receiver became the best wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, that monster year that you guys had with the receivers and Hicks at or I forget his name at quarterback. You had 3 of the top 5 fastest receivers Ohio State did. That was the Wilson year. Yeah, you guys were smoking in the receiver field that year.
Are you talking about Dwayne Haskins at quarterback?
That's it. Dwayne Haskins, and he had Wilson. We had Roman Wilson, but he had a different Wilson.
Yeah, well, he had Johnny Dixon and Chris Olave.
Yeah, and Chris
You're talking
Olave.
about Garrett Wilson. Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. But this year, Travion Henderson had a very good 40 time, but Denzel Burke and Quinton Junkins were both right behind the fastest edge, the guy from Tennessee. What's his name? Reese, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, Reese. Reese was like at 4.48 or 4.46, and Burke and Judkins were both at 4.47. If you go out there and look, I'm sure it's still out there, but that can't help those two guys. That's kind of a moderate or maybe even a slow time for those positions.
Yeah. You're right. Well, it's not like when we started watching football, Keith, where unless it was a cornerback, almost all the fastest guys were on offense.
Right. Yeah, we never saw edges in the 4.4s and the 4.5s back in the day. You're right.
We didn't even know what an edge was at that time.
That's right.
He was a defensive end.
They were defensive end, yeah.
Or an outside linebacker. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we in Michigan Nation, we are really looking forward to this year. We think our offense is going to be totally rebuilt and something instantly respectable. I don't necessarily trust more in quarterback room because he's saying the same thing this year that he was last year. We're happy with our quarterback room. We think we have a lot to choose from. I remember the same thing last year, but I say that one of the biggest things that a head football coach has to do at the NFL or major college football is they have to sell the program.
Well, think about this, though, Keith. Davis Warren's still there. So Davis Warren today should be better than Davis Warren was at this time last year.
Sure.
Okay, so that's that. Alex Orji, you lose nothing by losing him. 0. And you pick up Mikey Keene, who's a competent quarterback. I don't know what to compare him to because he did it at Fresno State, but he threw 65 touchdowns in 3 years.
Yes, let me give you one interesting stat on Mikey Keene. Apparently, he has negative rushing yards for his career.
I think I did see that.
Yeah.
That's
But it looks like he's a proficient passer, and we'll take that.
yes. And then on top of that, of course, you got Bryce Underwood. So I would agree with Sharon Moore's assessment.
Yeah, this year, just not last year.
No, not last year. He kind of botched that situation last year.
Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, but I'm glad to see that I got to talk to you again and get your notifications, and let's make sure TJ keeps up.
All righty. Well, thanks for the call, Keith. Always good to talk to you.
All right, it's good to talk to you, Mark. Have a good season.
Thanks, Keith. All right. That's good to get those little tips from our viewers. So if you have any oddities in regards to working with us here on YouTube or what you see or don't see, just let us know, because Keith let us know that he's not getting the notification. So if you're hearing me right now, please subscribe to the Voice of College Football, and please also turn on those notifications to know when we go live. But it's going to be every day, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We started this a couple weeks ago. We're going to continue it on and on and on. 4 p.m. Eastern time every Tuesday. It's going to be like a big topic every day. It's going to be going through the news, which of course today was Stanford fired its head football coach, Troy Taylor. And then we're going to have great guests like we should here in just a second with Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. Thank you for that, Moose. We do appreciate that. And that's another thing that we're going to clean up here in the next couple of weeks is we'll have a live stream. We'll talk to all of you and see what you would like on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. And what we did there is because I'm sure it runs through people's minds from time to time. Mark, why do you have a Patreon membership and then a YouTube membership? Well, what happened was there was no such thing as a YouTube membership. So we started Patreon, I don't know, probably 4 years ago. And then they started YouTube memberships. Well, I thought, well, it's easier for people, or just in the moment, it's more immediate for people to become members on YouTube while they're watching on YouTube rather than to go on over to Patreon. But we already had like 100 people on Patreon. So I didn't want to stop that down. So all we've done with the two is basically make sure that you get the same benefits to both, like my predictions, Steve Dace's predictions, Matt Zemek's predictions during the season. So you get the same offerings, and we would like to do much more than that for you. So we do appreciate it. And Troy says, you started Patreon over 5 years ago. Okay. I don't know. I'll look it up. I'll get you the exact. You know who could probably tell us the exact date would be Jackson Johnson. He knows the exact date of everything. I do appreciate the fine folks at Corn Nation, which is a Nebraska site that I believe is SB Nation. Yeah, that's SB Nation's site for Nebraska football. They had me on their show with Minnie Hunt last night. That was fun. So check it out. It's over on Corn Nation. Moose, thank you so much for the pop there. I just had somebody ask in the chat how they could get a signed book. I had 2 people ask me that today. So what you do is you just hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, and we will take it from there. But if you just want, hey, a standard copy, you don't need to see my ink on it messing up the inside page, then you can just order this baby on Amazon by looking up Disputed National Champions, or just go down into the description section down below. Disputed National Champions, grab the link down there. Again, I got to say, Minnie Hunt from Coronation was kind enough to have me on again last night, and she read it. She had a copy right in her hand. I was a bit surprised to see that. She was like, oh, yeah, I read this. It's great. So thank you for that, everyone. We would love to sell. Let's see. If I sell about 4,000 of these, I'll break even. So I took a bit of a gamble on that one. All right. Keeps life interesting. Oh man, look at Moose with the merch here. I am curious to see Moose, I don't know if you were in the chat. This was maybe 45 minutes ago when somebody asked about merch and said, you don't have any merch anymore. And I said, well, we're kind of in between here because we've got this merch and we set everything up and we did all this to deliver merch. And then it's kind of fallen apart on us and we're going to have to restart that, which I would love to do this off season, but it's just not going to happen. Gregory Stewart says Kevin Cork is on Fox News at night. That's funny. That you mentioned that just because I consider Kevin Cork. It's not like he's a buddy of mine. Like we trade text messages often, but he's a friend. Like he's in my phone. He's a good guy. Kevin Cork from our days at ESPN. Anyway, let me see if I can. I'm going to. Top quality shirts. Let me see if I can find that because I can never find this site. Top quality. What was it? Shirts? Top quality shirts. Let me try this. Top quality shirts.com collections. Rogers. I know this is riveting, but I'm interested. I'm curious to see. Collections, Mark Rogers. How do I spell my name? There we go. Okay, that's yeah. I think we're unfortunately, Moose. We are just out of business and shut down on that one. There you go, Karen. See, unfortunately, we've got issues. I do believe, Karen, from what I've seen on social media, that you fortunately did get a mug before we were shut down with our gear. You have to be very careful who you go into business with. But yeah, we had a full merchandise store, and it basically no longer exists. See, when I punch in the URL, Moose, that you gave me, there's nothing there. It goes to whatever. So move on to the next promotion, Moose. Yeah, the Amazon link. There we go. All right, we are waiting on Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. Otherwise, man, I have exhausted my. Yes, it does suck, Moose. We had some good merch. I liked our merch, and people liked it, and we selected quality clothing and such because we wanted it to be good. We didn't want to price ourselves out of the market. We didn't make it that quality, but it was pretty much top end. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, John. I got to admit, I didn't even know exactly where we stood on any of that either, but I just tried to go to the site and it's down. And Joey had told me a few months ago that, yeah, without going through the full details, not continuing there. All right. Well, I'm going to check on our guest, Chris Phillips, to see if he's still going to join us. Otherwise, the call-in line is available if you'd like to call me, as we did with Keith. And now I got to say, I also wonder about a few other things now that Keith's called and said that he doesn't get notifications for the show, even though they're turned on and he used to get notifications. Oh, man. Moose, I'm going to have to run through our promotions and eliminate what's no longer there. Moose is tearing it up on the promotions today. Aura, that is no longer a thing. Unfortunately, I would have to make some changes there. They needed me to change something in the commercial, and I didn't. And yeah. what you can do, folks, if you want to push your own personal brand, because that's a big deal these days, your own personal brand on social media, or if you've got a product or a service to sell, hit us up at sponsorships at vocfb.com. Just go to sponsorships at vocfb.com. Take it from the fine folks at Win Agency, who sponsored the Michigan show, and also a few others. Certainly in our past here at the Voice of College Football, we've had 15 to 20 sponsors on the national show, and they have all come away with a good experience. I will, Moose. I apologize, and I appreciate that you are following through on all these sponsorships. Yeah, I'm going to have to comb through all of that and see what's legit still and what's still ongoing. Hey, I know that Hero Soap is still up and running because I got $1.44 last month from Hero Soap. So if somebody out there bought like $10 worth of Hero Soap and I got my 14% commission or whatever it is, it's probably not that much. So they probably bought like $25. So I got $1.44 last month from Heroes Soap. Michigan point guard played at Auburn. I heard the Michigan basketball player who was interviewed after the Texas A&M game, he played at Ohio State. I didn't know that. All right, folks. I don't believe our guest is showing up. What do we say here? 13 minutes late, which I don't have an issue with as long as we're just going to be on. Our Iowa show, by the way, is going to be rescheduled for another time this week. They just hired a new basketball coach, so Corey Brad has got to go cover the Iowa basketball announcement. Therefore, we've got no Iowa show that we typically do at 5:30 Eastern, 15 minutes from now every Tuesday. And I know all of you await the Iowa show with myself and Corey Brada each week. That's Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern. So, hey, after I get done with this, I got a Penn State record later. And, man, I guess I can take it easy besides that. Steve Dace can teach me how to read ad copy. Why do I not know how to read ad copy? All right, folks. Again, let's see. The next time you will see me would be Wednesday, which means typically Ohio State and Ole Miss, but we got those out of the way early this week. So this week, the next time you will see me, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on the College Football Show. Check your notifications. I hope you're getting them. I'm going to check with YouTube to make sure. Might be why we've got nobody showing up to these shows. That could be it. All right. Well, we do appreciate all of you who did show up. And again, we're going to do this every day, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time in the week of April 6th. We start our late night call-in show once a week. You make the call. One late night call-in show every week, one. And you tell me what day, what time. Tukey G's got the first one. It's April 11th at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can tell me 2 in the morning, midnight, 10 p.m., 10:47, 11:19, whatever you want to make it. That's when we'll be here. I don't want to give Michigan fans I guess they wouldn't be able to do anything with 13 to 10. But if they could, then they probably would. Yes. Another Tukey G's becoming famous in recent weeks. Look at our buddy. Look at this. John is checking in from the office today. John's probably wondering what's going on because I've been telling him forever that we're going to do a 7 p.m. show. Scrap that, John. We're here every day from 4 to whenever, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to do a late night call-in show again, starting the week of April 6th. That's going to be once a week because that's where I keep hearing everybody says, that's where we found you, Mark, was late at night. You need to do a late night call-in show. All right. So again, check up with what you missed. We've been on for about 75 minutes talking Stanford football, of course, our calls and so forth and so on. So if you're joining us late, run it back, and we will catch you all back on Wednesday at 4 Eastern right here at the Voice of College Football.